today's webinar, like we spoke in the beginning, is all about leadership. How do we inculcate leadership behavior, leadership traits that at the end of the day, it helps us win the game. Why I feel I'm rightly positioned to even talk to you about something on this line is because I have personally spent about 15 years in the corporate world working with different corporates. Come up the ranks in all these, working in all these companies, and finally I was a part of leadership team before I decided to take my entrepreneurial journey. I also work, I'm also on the boards of few companies as independent directors. So I have a lovely perspective of an organization or an individual on their leadership capabilities, how can one inculcate them, or how does one get evaluated on them. So having built something like this, I felt I'm rightly positioned to share my views, share my experiences, and possibly share some examples with you all, which will somewhere help you all as well to develop these skills in you. Now, like I was mentioning a few minutes ago, let us keep this session as interactive as possible, because theory is not what I'm going to be focusing on today. That you would get in enough books. Maybe you will do Google, you will get enough information, or possibly if you attend any of the MBA schools, you would get enough and more of dope on theory. What I want to share with you are practical aspects of leadership, and share with you real life examples to help you understand the perspective. So let us begin the session and let us look at what do we think is a leader. So may I request the technical team to please open the line and open the line from the listener's end, and let me get your perspective. According to you, who's a leader? Is he or she the CEO of your company, the department head, or possibly a political leader? What comes in your mind when you think of a leader? Anybody would like to respond? In case there is a doubt in or trouble in asking, you could also type in your questions. Have we opened the lines? कुछ questions आए हैं या responses आए हैं? Somebody has responded. Can we see that? So there is one person. There are a couple of responses that we have received. Like one person is saying that a leader is somebody who inspires. A leader is with a title as well. Can we see them in detail? So anyone who is inspiring doesn't have to be. What does it say? How do I read? पूरा नहीं आ रहा ना. So first thing is somebody is mentioning that anyone who's inspiring doesn't have to be a leader with title. Pretty much agree with your viewpoint. Then a leader is somebody who has vision and takes accountability and ownership and takes the team along. That's another thought process around leadership. What more have we received? It's a little. So fair enough. So a leader is a role model. Leader is somebody who leads you with to the right path. Leader is somebody who inspires. Yeah. So we've received quite a few responses on leadership. So as you all would have heard from the points that I just made, none of you are saying that a leader is somebody. A leadership is a title. No, but none of you are mentioning that the leader is the CEO of your company, or the leader is, as popularly said, Mr. Narendra Modi. Everybody would like to give his example. Of course, they are dynamic leaders. They are, leaders with some standing. But what is more important to understand that leadership is not a title. It's a behavior. It's a mix. It's a mix of traits that finally translates into a certain type of behavior, which people can associate us with, and absolutely rightly so. So, what happens is all of us think that the minute we have been promoted, the minute we have a team reporting into us, the minute we have, people reporting into us, we start believing that we've become leaders. No, that is a respect to the title, that is a respect to the chair, but that is not respect to us as leaders. So it's extremely important that we understand this and address it in the right manner. So while a designation, a title, a trophy, our track record, our demonstration of doing good work, all this will qualify as a leadership skill, will qualify as something that makes us possibly a good contender to be a leader, but these are only external tags. What is leadership is more of intrinsic behavior. It is more inherent in us. Leadership cannot be taught. Leadership cannot be, you cannot be trained for leadership. Leadership is a behavior which is inherent. While I can expose you to what leadership behavior is, a lot will depend on you, that how you want to inculcate those behavior pattern or traits within your behavior system, and then take it forward. So, for instance, if it is if you are somebody who possibly runs a huge team, manages a huge team, has a lovely track record, has a team which is which runs behind you, helps you deliver on most of the projects that you're working on, but you have no control on your emotion. You lose temper at the drop of a hat. Will you still qualify as a good leader? Most likely no. Because a good leader is somebody who is able to manage his emotion, manage his, manage his expressions. He should be able to, cover up his anger. He should be able to even cover up his happiness or undue excitement. Instead, he should be able to manage the team in such a way that the team feels motivated. And that is a big difference. So let me, share with you a very interesting perspective, which is around, what is the difference between internal and external behavior patterns, or internal and external needs, when we talk about it. Like I said, leadership has a lot to do with internal thought process. Now, before we go ahead, let me share with you this very interesting story, which is about a few graduates, a few friends who graduated from their different B schools that they graduated from, and then they were all meeting for a reunion. And after the reunion, they all decided to meet with an old professor who was favorite of all the students in the class. As they were visiting the professor, the group started complaining about the stresses of life, family, and work. And professor was very patiently hearing all that. Then the professor disappeared into the kitchen, and he came back with a big pot of coffee. And then assortment of cups. So some were, normal glass cups, some were porcelain cups, some were crystal cups, some were very expensive, designer kind of cups. And all of them were kept on the table, and professor invited everybody to just take their pick and take their coffee. While, they took their pick and they were all enjoying their coffee, professor said that notice that each one of you took the nice and expensive cups first, leaving behind the cheap ones. While it is normal for you to want only the best for yourself, that is the reason for your problems and stress. The cup you hold in your hand and are drinking from adds nothing to the taste and quality of the coffee, right? It just adds to your expense, and also in some cases hides what you're drinking. So what you really wanted was a cup of nice coffee. What you really wanted, in fact, was a nice coffee. But what you actually chose, or what you paid attention to, was the design of the cup. Similarly, your job, your money, your position in the society are like the cups. They are simply the tools that hold and contain your life. The cup you have does not define or change your quality of life. Similarly is the leadership behavior. The title, the position, the designation that we all have are like cups. But our intrinsic behavior of being able to control our emotions, being able to demonstrate confidence, being able to communicate strongly, all that are the intrinsic behavior which will make us a good leader. So having said this, having shared this perspective with you, let me talk a little more about what do I mean by the external behavior. When I say leadership is also external, internal or intrinsic we spoke about in detail. But when I say external and going beyond just designation, it is important for leaders to also have a perspective of the environment, of the ecosystem, of figuring out who's influential, who's decision maker, what is the strategy of the organization, what is the vision of the organization. Then he needs to figure out how does he align his intrinsic behavior to these external requirements and deliver the outcome which is expected. However, he is still inadequate unless he gets supported by the whole ecosystem, that is his team, his seniors, his other stakeholders. So it's not only, so a leadership is a combination of internal focus, external focus, and also the ecosystem focus. All three together, when are in sync, will give rise to a good leader. So that brings me to the next slide, which is basically talking about what do we mean by internal focus, just crystallizing the thought here, that it simply means the ability to monitor your own thoughts, your own feelings and emotions, and that forms the basis of decision making. As well as ability, your outer focus, it is your ability to understand the larger forces of the system, which forms the basis of strategic thinking. The center part, which is the other focus, which is basically your ability to empathize with others, which is basically how you're making your whole team work for you, how are you managing your other relationship, which in turn, all three together give rise to a good leadership outcome. However, once you attain these three, does it mean that your job as a leader is over? Not really. You have to continuously keep improving yourself. You have to continuously keep analyzing your inner focus and practice mindfulness. For instance, let me just share a personal experience with you. In one of the corporates that I was working, I was extremely successful when it came to delivering the projects that I was working on. Most of the projects that I worked upon were more or less the star projects of the company. So I used to feel that as a leader, I'm very successful. My team loves me, and that is the reason why collectively we are able to deliver some such wonderful projects. But I had this very possibly I would call it an insecure feeling that I did not like to lose. So I wanted all my projects to be the star projects. I wanted all the projects to be the best project in the organization. And to be able to achieve that, even if there is a small glitch that will come, even if my team member will make a small mistake, I would really lose my cool. Of course, once things settle down, I'll go and apologize. But once the crack is made, we can only put the M seal and try to, cover up the crack. But the seamlessness goes. So same is the case here. Exactly that was happening to me. That while I was able to deliver good projects, and I was thinking that, oh, my team loves me, and hence we are able to collectively deliver such wonderful projects. But on introspection, I figured out that no, actually I was incorrect. It wasn't the case. My team wasn't really loving me. They were actually just respecting the chair that I was sitting on. And I'm quite an intuitive person, so there were enough and more feelers for me to figure out that the team wasn't really aligned the way I was thinking they were aligned. And that's when I started practicing mindfulness. I started figuring out what is it, where am I going wrong. I went to the extent of even going for my health checkup to figure out if my health parameters are right, and what makes me so irritable regularly. And on going in for a medical checkup, I figured out that yes, there were huge deficiencies of vitamins and minerals in my body, which was actually making me irritable, and I underwent a treatment for that. I started practicing meditation very, very actively. And I consciously told myself that I am not going to lose my cool, come what may. And it wasn't really easy, okay? It took me more than 6 months to a year to even come to a level which I would say was even acceptable to me in terms of my emotions management. It was much longer a journey, when I actually started feeling that, yes, I now have some control over my emotions. But, that was something which really was a trigger, that it told me that no, while I think my team is aligned to me, no, they are not aligned to me, they are aligned to the chair. And trust me, when I left the team after 3 years of working with them, everybody till date tells me that, they haven't really found out another person with whom they felt as comfortable as they felt with me. Primarily because I worked around making myself a better leader than just feeling bloated about the chair that I was sitting upon. Second thing is about the external focus or the outer focus that we were talking about. How do we improve ourselves in that space? It's very, very important. See, all of us have this strategic thinking ability to make decisions and all of that. But it's very important that regularly we seek guidance from people. And these people are typically those who are senior to us, who are superior to us, not necessarily actually senior to us. They should just be superior to us in anything. I learn a lot of things from my own children. Simple thing as being happy. Sometimes I see them and I feel, oh, they are so happy on something as simple as getting permission to watch their favorite TV show. So if happiness can be as simple, why can't I be simply happy? So what I'm saying is looking for guidance from people who are better than you, or maybe superior to you on certain aspects. When it comes to formal leadership coaching, it is good to have a mentor, good to have a confidant, to whom you can just go and talk anything under the sun, and rest assured that the discussion will lie between the two of you, and he or she will not think ill of you. That confidence really helps. So, having a mentor is highly recommended for being able to inculcate good leadership capabilities. And lastly, to be able to work strongly with the team, or comfortably with the team, it is extremely important that you regularly ask for feedback. In fact, my ability to figure out that my team was not aligned to me came from my habit of seeking regular feedback. So, I could read the body language very easily while they were telling me, no, everything is fine, we feel good with you. I could figure out that their body and their words were not aligned to each other. And that's what gave me a trigger. They would not look into my eyes and they will say that, yes, we are aligned with you, right? So that gave me a trigger that there definitely is somewhere misalignment, and I have to figure out why. And then came this whole point around my emotions not being in line with what their expectations are, and me working around it. So as a leader, you have to figure out what is your weak area, how are you in all these three spaces, and how are you taking it forward. So yeah, this particular slide where I've said life story, this is exactly what I wanted to share with you. So just going ahead here. Now, what are the traits that define a good leader? I would have loved to pause here and take your inputs, but just keeping the whole point around technical glitches in mind, I think let me just go ahead. But can I see some people have? I'm just going through the feedback that is coming online. Give me a moment, please. So, has somebody is saying that it's not on. So, Okay, now so let us look at what are the different capabilities or qualities that define a leader. First and foremost, in my belief or in my opinion, the ability of having self-belief, the confidence, positivity. These are traits which are very, very important for being a good leader. Now, I love telling stories. So another story that comes in my mind here is that of frogs. So there was a group of frogs that were going in a jungle, and suddenly the two of them fell in a well. All these frogs were trying to help the other frogs come out of the well, but they were just not able to. Both the frogs tried hard. They were jumping and jumping, and yet they were not able to come out. So after a point in time, rest of the frogs started wondering that it's futile to unnecessarily try and bring them out. So let them be here, and let them meet up with their fate, and let them die here in the well. So that's what they advised to the two frogs, that there's no point unnecessarily you guys trying so hard, or we trying so hard. Let us accept that you're not going to get out of the well, and let's just move on. Hearing this, one of the frogs was really disappointed. He tried, and finally, he said, yes, the rest of the frogs are, right in their viewpoint. So let me not try. And finally, he stopped trying. He was disappointed, and finally, he died. However, the other frog kept trying still, and kept trying hard and hard and hard. And finally, he took a jump which actually made him swing out of the well. So everybody, all the other frogs started cheering him up. Everybody started clapping. And they kind of started saying that, yes, we have so much faith in you. You have done something which is, unimaginable for all of us. So from now on, we declare you as our leader, and we're very proud of you, and everybody is celebrating. Well, this particular frog is wondering why everybody is celebrating. And then one of the frogs said that we are celebrating because we are so happy with your ability to not give up, and you continuously tried, and finally you managed to come out of the well while we were all telling you not to come out. Then this frog asked, were you all telling me not to come out? Okay, I am hard of hearing, so I can't really hear what you were telling me. So I thought you all were cheering me up. And that gave me a lot of confidence, and I kept trying, and finally I came out. So, the point here that I'm trying to make is that you will find a lot of detractors on the way. But if you have self-belief that you can do it, you will be able to do it. And you have to have that confidence or a self-belief as a leader. Second point, that there will be negativities in life. But if you choose to focus on positive, you will come out as a winner. So that's another trait that as a leader you need to inculcate. So like this, there are so many other traits that a leader needs to have. What I have listed down here in these slides are just, literally indicative list. It's definitely not exhaustive. Each one of us will have our own opinion. But I'm fine with that. But these are some which you must have as a leader. Now, trust. We all wonder that trust comes in a package deal with a title. The minute I have become the team leader, everybody else will start trusting me. Everybody else will start buying into my vision. Everybody else will believe that whatever I am saying and I'm doing is going to result in a positive outcome. It not necessarily happens. So we have to develop trust. We have to earn trust. So as a leader, it is one of the, again, very, very important capabilities, or rather traits, that we must nurture in ourselves, is that of trust. People must trust us. Similarly, emotional intelligence, I've spoken, enough and more about it. Being strategic, being focused, again, the frog story, the frog, had he not been focused on his outcome, he wouldn't have succeeded. Confidence, talent, and capability. Of course, if the leader doesn't have talent and capability, he just cannot earn trust. So he has to know the subject. He has to know what he is working on. But yes, he also has to know that while what topic I'm working on, or what assignment I'm working on, I have to be hands-on to that. At the same time, he must know how to get the work done. Time management, extremely important skill as a leader. Strong communication skills, clarity in thought, so that you can help people buy into your vision. Network and relationships, extremely important. Ability to share the vision, inspire people, and especially be passionate about what they're doing. All these are the traits in leaders, which is a must-have. Now, let me again share another very interesting story here about these skills, because you know what, when I was in the B schools, or when I was possibly, in the initial part of my career, the first 3, 4, 5 years of my career, maybe, all these concepts and all these discussions honestly used to seem like gyan to me. I'll say, kya hai, self-belief hona chahiye, or the leader should inspire, and all that, honestly, used to seem all gyan to me. But today, when I actually look back, I do feel that, giving importance to these skills and traits definitely goes a long way. There is a statistical proof around this too. So I'm sure most of you would have heard about Dale Carnegie and his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, this book is one of the bestsellers, and doing really well for ages now in this space. Mr. Warren Buffett, who is one of the very famous investors worldwide, is a big fan of work that Dale Carnegie does. In fact, he himself underwent public speaking training at the age of 21, 22, because he really believes that having good communication skill is one of the biggest and the most important leadership traits. When he read his book, he was quite intrigued. So like most of us, when we will read such a book, we will read it, we will feel that, the book says really right things, and, we must follow them, and that's about it. We shut the book and we forget about it. However, Warren Buffett being who he is, he thought of actually, figuring out that, how much of it is really true. So what he did is he identified a few people without telling them. He tweaked his behavior towards these two sets of people. With one set of people, he was really nice, kind, and he would he would actually follow all the prescribed ways of dealing with people, as mentioned in the book of Dale Carnegie. However, with the other set, he was very casual. He would be like, how he would be possibly with anybody without really thinking about these traits and skills. In fact, in some cases, he was being nasty purposely. And over the period of time, he monitored the behavior of these two sets of people. And over the period of time, he could statistically prove that people with whom his behavior was in the prescribed manner actually proved to be better relationships. They actually proved to be somebody who, who supported at the right time, who, came for the right help, right support, stood behind as a team member, all of that. While the people with whom the behavior was not as per the prescribed format, the relationship really did not nurture. So it's a clear-cut, understanding of the fact that these traits definitely matter. These traits definitely help us become better leaders. Yep, I've already shared enough and more stories around this. So yeah, I would have been quite happy to actually hear your stories and your experiences around this. But let us do that when we are actually, in the Q&A session. Maybe we can keep that a little longer. And take different perspectives, because see, these are like I said in the beginning itself, these are not theoretical concepts that I would like to discuss. These are real life examples. We'll all learn from each other. So I hope so far so good, and you all are with me. Before we move to a little little more detailed discussion, which is around different types of leadership. So, in your career, in your, day-to-day life, regular interaction with people, you would come across different kinds of people. There will be people who would be very democratic in their approach, wherein they would, let the team do everything, let the team decide, let the team deliver. And of course, when it comes to credit also, they are happy to pass on the credit to the team. All said and done, such people definitely, are a pleasure to work with, because they let us be. But at the same time, they are not an inspiration in some cases. Because there are times when you're looking for guidance, when there are times when you're looking for somebody to handhold you. There are times when you're looking for somebody to hold the fort for you. So if a leader is too democratic in approach, these times become challenging. Secondly, any decision making becomes very, very extended and delayed, because it's democracy. Everybody is getting a chance to make a decision, and hence bringing the team to a common shared vision becomes tough. So while this is a good leadership style, might work for some, but it definitely has its shortcoming in the form of delayed decision making or alignment within the team. The other style of leadership could be autocratic, where the leader is deciding everything. He or she decides whether what should be the process. He will guide or she will guide to the entire team that, oh, I have had prior experience, I know the stakeholders here, I know what would work, and hence let me lead the assignment. Now again, that lets people feel comfortable, shielded, and also makes them feel nice that the bosses or the leader is taking so much interest. However, it does not let people function independently. And again, that has its own limitations. Moving on to the other style, which is transactional, wherein, assignment by assignment or task by task, people become transactional. Task by task, people become leaders. So that is also very exciting and interesting way when everybody in the team gets an opportunity. But at the same time, when you think of creating a pipeline, a leadership pipeline, definitely, identifying the true leaders becomes a problem here, because there wouldn't be any sustained track record for one or two people or three people in the team to demonstrate. So that becomes an organization level challenge there. Charismatic leader, somebody like Mahatma Gandhi, or possibly Barack Obama, who by their charisma really excite people, really interest people, and people just follow them because they are in awe of them. And these leaders are able to get the work done, are able to attain the outcome that they are really expecting, just because people are so much in awe of them that they are willing to do or willing to take orders or follow what the leader is suggesting. Then comes transformational leader, very interesting style, who has the ability to bring change to a very great level. And finally comes the situational leader, which is what most of us possibly practice, should practice, and one of the most strongly touted leadership behavior in this space, which is the situational leadership. So it was promoted by promoted by Henry and Blanchard somewhere in early 90s, and after that it has kind of become the way of looking at leadership style. Now, what does this say? It is very interesting. It talks about two leadership behavior, which is one is the supportive behavior and the other is the directive behavior. So what a leader should do, like I have been talking about, that when it comes to the team and the team management, leader can either be involved with the team, help them deliver, or let the team be, let them take their decisions, let them take the whole assignment forward, and be there as a silent supporter. So in the whole leadership cycle, there are four types of situational leaders, that leadership opportunities that come, and more or less in an organization this is what gets followed. So say for instance the first quadrant, which is the S1, the red quadrant, here when a newbie joins, a new person joins an organization, here the leader is typically telling him about the organization, how it functions, or what is the ask for this particular task. So there is a lot of direction that is given to the newbie, and in terms of support, it's low on support and very high on direction. And to a great extent, a newbie likes this, but it could even backfire if the newbie is possibly not really fresh out of the college, but somebody who's had 3 years, 4 years of work experience and then joined. So he would have had corporate experience and may not need so much of direction. So, for a leader, it is very important to understand what kind of person that I am leading, and then tweak the leadership behavior. Then moves to the second quadrant, where the direction is also high. At the same time, a lot of support is also given by the leader, because by this time it is likely that the person is getting overwhelmed by the corporate world, or is feeling that maybe it's a stage of frustration that I'm not able to deliver tasks despite clear guidance or clear direction from my senior. And this is the time when the time of coaching comes in, wherein the leader is not only directing him what to do, is also supporting him in how to do. Eventually, once this person starts settling down, direction starts reducing. However, the support continues, because this is the time possibly when the leadership pipeline can be built. So a leader, if he is trying to look at who can be the number 2 or number 3 in my team, this is the S3 is the leadership style to be undertaken, where though a lot of support is provided by the leader, but a lot of direction is decided by the employee or the subordinate himself or herself. And then comes the final stage, where it is more of delegation, that the leader and the subordinate both are on the same page. They know what happens, they know how to do this, they know who are the right people who can support us in this, and hence, the leader, the frequency matters so well, then the leader can simply delegate the task and can rest assured that the task will be, the task will be really done to the extent that they were expecting. So these are the 4 quadrants where more or less most of the leadership behavior lies. Now, if a person decides to, for a leader, it is extremely important not to use same leadership style for all the team members. So it's extremely important for the leader to figure out which team member lies in which quadrant, and then tweak his or her leadership behavior according to the subordinate's capabilities or maturity level. So if the subordinate, or like I mentioned right in the beginning, that if the subordinate, though is new joining in the department or in the team, but has been in the system for a very long time, if the leader starts directing him too much, that might create friction. But at the same time, since this, I'm sure you all would have also experienced this, that in your organization there will be lateral movements. So from department A, the person moves to department B. Now, when the person moves to department B, the department B head might just think that, okay, fine, he's been working with the organization for such a long time. Let me not pester him with too much of direction. Let me just let him be, and let me just, I can just give him a lot of responsibilities. He can be one of my, those teammates who can hit the ground running. So let me give him a lot of projects, and possibly that will help me reduce my turnaround time. And he gets into the S4 mode of leadership for this particular candidate. On the contrary, while the candidate has been with the organization for a very long time, he may or may not be familiar with the functioning of department B. So he definitely needs direction. He definitely needs support, both. So possibly he is lying somewhere in the S2. Maybe the duration that he would move from S2 to S3 to S4 will be much faster than somebody else. But he is in S2 and he is expecting S2 level of coaching from his leader, while the leader is somewhere at S4. So there is complete contrast. And this is what results into frustration, lack of trust, lack of disbelief in the capabilities of leader, and the leader, tends to lose. So to avoid such situations, it's extremely important that as leader, identify your teammates, identify their capabilities, identify their, identify their ability to do the task without getting directed, and how much of support and direction do they need. So once that is identified, leadership style or the leader, trust in leadership multiplies. Having said that, let me, on a lighter note, share this small clip with you, which basically shares or gives an insight about what happens in many organizations. That delegation is taken too literally. So the super boss will say, I need this report, I need the weekly report to share to the client tomorrow, which will then get delegated to the next subordinate, who gets delegated to the next subordinate. And the person right at the bottom keeps wondering that, how am I going to be able to do this? Now the first boss is thinking that I have given the task to my number two, who's possibly aware, so I don't need to do directions. I'm only, I'm only doing delegation. Second boss is thinking, okay, fine, my number two knows what I am doing, so I also don't need to do delegation. I only need to do I don't need to do direction. I only need to do delegation. So like this, a Chinese whisper kind of a situation happens, and what was expected and what was finally delivered may or may not match, which in turn might result into longer turnaround times and also frustration in the entire team across the value chain, starting from the leader to the youngest or to the junior most employee. So best avoid such situations and know how much what leadership style to adapt, not only depending on the people that you're dealing with, but also depending on the situation that you're into. So let me share some real life cases that I personally faced, and that will possibly give you a glimpse, or that possibly give you some idea of how exactly as a leader, the leader needs to identify situations and tweak behavior. So the first one is around how one is able to influence the team or empower them. So there was a very interesting social media project that came my way when I was working in one of the large corporates. Now, I had this girl in the team who was very, very enthusiastic, very dedicated, and she was to manage the online presence of the company, which was primarily a website in those days. So social media was just, becoming famous at that time. Of course, today it is a very integral part of most of the, positioning campaigns. But those days, social media was not all that famous. However, this girl was very keen to learn new things, take on new responsibilities. So when this project came our way, we decided that, from my team, she will be the one who would be working very closely with me on this particular project. Now, believing in the whole, concept of empowerment and delegation, I asked her how much of social media or how much of digital media are you aware of? And she said fairly well, because I operate in this space. So we decided to let her work independently on this project, and I would intervene only when she needs support. She started working on the project. However, on a weekly basis, which then the frequency resulted reduced to maybe twice in a week basis, she would get thrashed by the CEO of the company for not doing a job well. And I was not able to figure out where is the gap. So then one day I sat her down and I asked her that, do you need some support from me? Because you said you know the concept, but why are you not able to then, execute this project, and instead getting beaten up by the CEO on a regular basis? So then she shared that while she could understand the social media aspect, however, there are two things to social media. One is understanding the platform, and second, what goes on the platform, the content side of it, the business side of it, which she did not really understand. So while she knew that you have to be present on Facebook, you have to be present on Twitter, you have to be present on LinkedIn, and so on, what needs to be done here also, she was very well aware. She had designed a lovely campaign which was approved by almost everyone who mattered in the organization. So, we were not able to figure out why is she not able to execute. The simple reason was that while she knew the platform, while she understood the campaign, she did not have the adequate content backing, because she did not understand the content. So when we figured this gap out, we extended the team size to 3. With her leading the project and managing the platforms, The second person was actually, creating content. He understood the business and he was very good with writing, so he was creating content. And the third person was busy into scheduling content. And the three of them did a wonderful job. In the meantime, it took us about 2.5 weeks to implement this whole exercise. So what I did is I wrote a mail to the CEO saying that we are figuring out why the gap existed in implementing the whole social media campaign for the company. So till that gap is not bridged, I will be the interface between you and the department. So we will, I will keep you updated about the developments. While this particular colleague who was earlier leading it, will be focusing on the project primarily, and will start interfacing with you in a couple of weeks again. So what it did is the CEO was fairly fine with this whole arrangement, and we managed this whole setup. And finally, 3 weeks, I had the thought of interaction with the CEO, updating her about the whole campaign and how the campaign was going. At the same time, the three-member team was busy implementing the campaign, and they did a wonderful job with it. And 3 weeks later, the colleague who was, who I was mentioning in the beginning, she came, she very seamlessly took over the project back from me and became the interface with the CEO again. Now here, three things happened, if you notice. One, as a leader, we, as a leader, I did not like to take the complete credit or pass on the blame completely to the team. We sat down, we thrashed out the problems, and then was a decision taken to, extend the team, or whatever solution that was required was implemented. Point number two is, when required, the leader agreed to hold the fort, but at the same time did not take away the complete credit of the project. Once things were streamlined and settled, the leader gave the credit back to the team, and the team was leading it all over again. So what it did between me and the girl is it kind of developed a huge sense of trust between the two of us. She believed me, she trusted me, she said that yes, Neetu is there to back me up when required. At the same time, the other two colleagues who joined the project felt more empowered that, okay, fine, they are working in a project which is the CEO's pet project, and we have called them at the last minute, which makes them important, which makes them feel that their capabilities are such that it can be brought in at the last minute as well. And lastly, look at the way of situational leadership. So initially, the way I started was complete delegation. But midway through, I realized that the delegation wasn't working. So I had to not only become the interface, but also help the team form that, the small team, delegate new tasks and assign the responsibilities and all of that. So again, I became very high on support and very high on direction. So moving from delegation to the coaching kind of a scenario. And then once the project was, taking over, I moved slowly. I reduced the direction and but continued supporting. So moved to the S3 quadrant, and then finally, once everything again was settled in 2 to 3 weeks' time, moved back to delegation. So this is a typical case of, leadership and team management that one would talk about. Like this, there are many other examples we did, and possibly I would rather rest these examples when we are into discussion mode, when we are interacting with each other. So I am currently skipping the point number 2, which is managing stakeholders during the repositioning exercise. I'll be happy to share this experience when we are talking about it in the interactive session. And the third one, which is the team management and emotional intelligence, I've already shared with you, wherein I understood that there was a gap in me, and I tried bridging it by working on my emotions. So, moving on to last few slides before I conclude my session, and then we get into the interactive mode, is there are top 10 things that a leader must have, or a top 10 skills that a leader must have. Keep them as your Bible for a leadership skill. First and foremost, share information. Communicate as much as possible with your team or with other stakeholders. It is very, very important that people buy into your vision, people buy into your strategy, people buy into your decision. And they would be able to buy into your decision or your vision only when they know what it is, only when they know what is the progress on it. So it is very, very important that you regularly share information with the stakeholders involved. The second point is around adjusting your style. Like we discussed earlier, one stroke cannot suit all the folks. So we have to try different styles with different people. We have to adopt different styles with different situations as well. So be flexible, be ready to adjust your style. Have fun. Nothing like enjoying your work. Unless you're not enjoying your work, unless you're not really treating it as something which is, which is something that you look forward to, your team cannot really, look at it the other way. So it is very, very important that you enjoy the assignment, you enjoy the talk, and then, it is contagious. Your team will definitely buy into that. Raise hands. Or raise your hand. It is very important because the more projects you will work upon, the more confident you will become, the more visible you will become. Your learning, your exposure, all that will multiply, and all these are so essential to be a good leader. So raise your hand, be there, be visible, and execute as many projects as possible. Be there for your team. Let them feel that yes, whenever they need, it is not that their leader or their boss is hiding somewhere at the back. No, you're there. You're very much there to take care of any contingencies that may arise during the assignment. Second is the next one is focus on your time. Very, very, very important. Time management as a skill. And the famous 80-20 Pareto principle applies here too. So you must spend about 20% of your, you must spend maximum of your time and energy on the 20% of your most important people, and 80%, who generate basically the 80% of the results. Also, it's important that in addition to people development, it's important that you manage your task well, you manage your time well, you manage your family well. Recently, a very interesting point that I read, that if you are only enjoying your work but not enjoying your family, friends, and faith, you're not a good leader. So you have to have a very satisfying, very content personal life to have a rising professional life. Always remember this. Remove obstacles. When it comes to leader, people look at you as somebody who's a problem solver. So you have to also have this problem solving ability in you. You have to have this, ability to convince different stakeholders and execute or rather get the work done with the easiest manner. Because see, what happens is when a team is focusing on getting the work done, but in an organization we all agree that there are so many detractors. So, what the team expects from the leader is you would not really, get into a day-to-day task of execution, but yes, you would help them, clear the path. And they really look up to you for this. So remove obstacles, give feedback, extremely important that you time and again give feedback to your team, but be mindful of your language, because nobody does a bad job intentionally. Everybody likes to do a good job. So if there is a mistake in the work, instead of looking at it as a mistake, many a times they may not even realize that they have made a mistake. So instead of looking at it as a mistake, or instead of pointing it out as a negative experience, let us be mindful of the words and figure out what went wrong that such a situation came up. So it's extremely important that time to time we give feedback to our team. This makes them quite productive. Set small milestones. Quick wins are always a big motivator. They do two things. They motivate your team with a small milestone achievement, and secondly, it also gives a lot of opportunity to course correct. Moving on to the next point, which is about empower through delegation. You need to delegate. If you wouldn't, then your time will only be consumed in completing tasks, which is not what you want. So let the team, execute. Let the team feel empowered. Let the team feel let the team feel that they own the process, and then complete the task. Wherever required, of course, you will come in their support. But delegation is a big, big aspect of leadership. So that, but when it comes to delegation, delegate such that the team feels empowered and not really, feels taken for granted that the boss is not doing anything, he's or she is just passing on the work to me. No, doing delegation with a sense of empowerment is very, very important. And last but not the least, say thanks. People really feel nice when they are appreciated. So a thank you note, a pat on the back, a clap in the group, none of that goes for a waste. In fact, all of them make a huge difference. Really, really contribute to motivation. So be a motivational leader and support your team. By regularly thanking them, by regularly being there, by regularly removing obstacles for them, giving them feedback, giving them time, and also at the same time making work fun and not really making it feel like a burden. So this is my last slide, and before we conclude, let me quickly tell you an interesting story again of a carpenter or a sculptor kind of a person who was given the task of creating a masterpiece pencil. He was told by his master that give me a pencil which is the best possible pencil in the world. And while he was doing so, the pencil asked him that, what do you mean by being a masterpiece? Why should I be the masterpiece, and how can I be the masterpiece? This is what this is what the carpenter, or this is what the sculptor who was creating this pencil shared with him, with the pencil. That, remember 5 things. First and foremost, and all these 5 things has a very strong correlation with leadership traits. So first and foremost, remember that you may be the best pencil in the world, but to become effective, you need somebody else's hand. To write well, you need somebody else's hand. To become useful, you need somebody else's hand. Similarly, we may be the best we may be the best achievers, we may be the most accomplished people, but to be able to accomplish, to be able to be looked upon as best leaders, we have to have the support of our team. We have to have the support of our stakeholders. The second point that the carpenter made was the sharpening of pencil. That sharpening is a process, may be painful, but to do a good job of writing well, it is important that you get sharpened time and again. Again, the same quality applies to a leader. Stay sharp, stay updated, stay aware. The third point that he mentioned was that while you will be the best pencil in the world, remember you still have an eraser. So you are allowed to make mistakes. But when you make mistakes, again remember that there will be some mistakes which the eraser can erase very easily, while some will leave some impression. Again, comparing it with the leadership skill, as leaders, we are allowed to make mistakes. We will make mistakes. And let us not be afraid of making mistakes. But remember that we also have opportunities to correct those mistakes. Fourth point that he mentioned was that while I might make you excellent looking, wonderful looking, most beautiful looking pencil from outside, but unless your inside, that is your lead, is not perfect, you will be of no use. Similarly, again comes to the leadership skills. That as external title or external designation, our ability to think strategically, our ability to demonstrate a fabulous track record, all that might be there. But unless we are not good human beings, we cannot be good leaders. And last point that the carpenter made to the pencil, that wherever you write, remember that you have to leave a mark. Similarly, as a leader, whatever you do, leave an impression, your imprint. Very, very important. So, as a concluding remark, I would say that in order to lead to win, it is very, very important that we work from, very, very honestly with all the three. That is head, heart, and hand. Through our head, it is important for us to understand the ecosystem, the technical details, the decision making, who's the influential person, who's the best team member. All these decisions our head will help us make. But since it's a lot about people, our heart has to come in. It will help us understanding people better. It will help us develop people better. It will help us feel people important, make them motivated. It will help us tell that don't be little people, don't be insensitive to people. Very important. So having a good heart to be a good leader is also extremely important. And lastly, that once we attain a leadership position, we still have to remember that we have come up the ranks. So when need be, we better be ready to roll up our sleeves. We better dirty our hands. We better do the task if the time needs us to do it, instead of depending on our team members. Unless we don't do this, possibly there could be, we may not be able to even accomplish the task. In the interest of the whole organization, it is very, very important that we do not, we present a lovely mix of well thought through head, a very compassionate heart, and a very hardworking hand. Remember, people have to buy into the leader before they buy into their leadership and vision. So inculcate right leadership attitude and lead to win. Thank you. Now I open the session for any kind of question and answer.